Hi, my name is Sole, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. So we're back. Season 16 has officially premiered, and we're here to talk about the first episode of season 16, Something's Gotta Give. First of all, I want to thank you for all the feedback and encouraging words and all of the comments you've been leaving under the post that I posted earlier this week. It's been overwhelming, but I'm really glad because I was nervous to post the first episode, not only because I was now officially doing this solo, but also because it was a hard episode to get through. I was a little bit nervous, and there were so many things that I wanted to get right. And looking back, I was like, oh, that didn't go well, and I forgot that thing and everything like that. So I'm just glad if it didn't show too much, but I'm hoping that now that we're kind of past that, it gets a little bit easier with each week. So yeah, if you're only listening to this and you prefer to watch me or see the comments that I read, tune in to the YouTube video because I've now started to edit the episode in a way that you can kind of follow the comment and see some visuals and stuff like that. So maybe it's a little bit more entertaining that way. But yeah, let's just get started with the comments. And once again, thank you for sending them in. I mean, without you, this podcast would be a little more lonely. So thank you. Okay, let's start with Emily's comment. Thoroughly enjoyed the whole episode. The opening scene was beautiful. A bit disappointed that Lisa wasn't in it. Very surprised that Copper is back since he's got to be at least 20, probably older. I guess it makes sense that they're introducing him early since we've seen that Mallory is returning at some point. Makes me think that maybe she has a storyline with Copper again. Yeah, it was pretty funny that Copper just randomly appeared. It's kind of like in season 10 when Mallory came to visit. He was suddenly in the stall, like, where has he been all this time? But Copper learning to rock climb out of that well was not in my Heartland season 16 bingo heart, but here we are. And then they continued. Love seeing Rick. I found it interesting that they've started the storyline of his parenting right at the beginning of the season. I hope that means we get to meet both Carl and the new baby during this season since they are adopting. I was unsure about Lindy's scene with the horse at first because of her age and the fact that so many people pulled off a highway for it, but it was well made with the reference to the Miracle Girl saddle. Yeah, I was a little bit like, I didn't know at first if it was too cheesy. I mean, it's Heartland, so there's a little bit of a cheesy element always present, but I think they did good job with it. And I like that later on in the episode when Amy's going through that moment in her pet bedroom, she recalls the time that she helped with Caesar, the horse, and the moment she became the Miracle Girl. So it kind of showed that they both have this urge to help horses when they see that they are needed there. So I like that it was of course a little bit like very sweet, but I didn't mind it. I thought I would, but yeah, I don't. The Finn reference to taking the blinders off makes me so excited for their relationship, but also sad at the same time. Yeah, that one was a bittersweet punch to the gut for me as well. Then they continued. I don't really like that the living situation between Peter and Lou hasn't changed because we've seen that it hasn't worked well for them previously. So I hope Peter returns soon. Yeah, I was a little bit curious how they were going to do it because, like you said, it hasn't worked before, but suddenly now it's fine, I guess. But yeah, so I wasn't sure what they're going to do with Peter because it seems like maybe Gabe hasn't been on set yet, and they're currently 2 months away of finishing the season. So hurry up, Peter. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they're going to deal with the Lou Peter relationship. Is it a back burner kind of thing, like kind of randomly there? Because I'm like I've said before, I'm not the biggest Lou and Peter fan, but since they saw it fit that they were gonna do this, I was like, okay, then see what you got. But so far, I'm not entirely convinced. I think it was very smart of them to do, but kind of like sneaky that they were like, oh, we've just been in Vancouver all this time, like going back and forth, like Peter's around. But of course, we're not seeing it. But in a way, it's like, you can't blame us for that because we're actually doing something. But they're doing the least they can do, I would say. But again, just the first episode, so we'll see what they have in store. I love seeing Clint so much, and Logan seems to be very involved in the center, which is good. The storyline of Jess and Flash came as a surprise, as did someone other than Tim arguing with Jack. Loved it overall. I was kind of surprised that Tim wasn't more involved with the Jack and Jessica situation because he likes to get involved. But also at the same time, I was glad that Jessica isn't just kind of talking through Tim, or Tim isn't talking through Jessica, or like, that Jessica is actually interacting with Jack. But I did think it was a little bit intense. But then again, it's been months. So who knows what's happened between the seasons overall. So maybe it was just that. But I think they did a great job with the acting, and I could feel Jessica's frustration. And yeah, I guess I was just hoping that the storyline with the loft and the problems that they have would kind of open dialogue between Tim and Jessica about where they will hopefully live in the future. I mean, for Jessica, this was temporary. For Tim, he likes the loft, but I feel like they kind of gave it up too easily. But again, it's just the first episode, so who knows what's coming up. But I feel like maybe they are taking the easiest way out by doing all this. But yeah, we'll see. Then Dip 1326 said, when I watched the season trailer and saw the scene of Amy and Jack's chat in front of the fireplace, I was worried about what life-altering decision Amy was struggling with. I am happy that they were talking about the center. I believe bringing Amy back to her roots with more trouble horror stories is a very good direction for the show. Yeah, I was sort of worried that talk would be about Finn. And, back when I first saw that trailer for the first time, I was very hopeful about the Amy and Finn storyline. So I was nervous about that, but trying not to jump to conclusions too fast. I preferred it to be about her job. And I think it was good to kind of see Jack reflecting where he is at the same time, because it not only worked for Amy's case, but also for Jack to kind of deal what he was going through, because he was obviously grumpy, and other people were kind of in the way of his mood swings. So it was a very good scene to have, and it moved the storyline along nicely. The storyline that Lindy seems destined to be another miracle girl was well done and will not be without pitfalls. Keeping Lindy physically safe, giving her a normal childhood, and protecting their privacy all came up in this episode. Yeah, I was really surprised, but positively, that they were actually kind of pointing out those possible problems, like her safety. Like, sure, it's cute that she's doing all those things, but it's like Amy said, like she could have been hurt. And I think it's good that they had that exchange between Amy and Lindy, where Amy states that, I get that you wanted to help, but that was still dangerous, and try not to do that anymore. Like, let's just like take it easy. And I do appreciate that they sort of brought up the conversation about children and internet, how fame could potentially affect a child. And we saw it in the episode that Lindy was kind of isolated and she got special attention, and it didn't really go well with her because kids can't really handle that kind of emotions at that age yet. So I think it was good that they brought those things in. And of course, I want the best for Lindy, but it was kind of nice to see that there were some struggles. The life of a kid isn't easy, so maybe that's something that will help someone else speak about their feelings and possibly something they're going through. And hopefully it would kind of make people understand that children and internet, not necessarily the best combination in the long run, Yeah. The conversation between Lou and Amy in the kitchen also hinted that Katie might be a lot more like her mother than we thought. It looks to me like it is Lou who has been making all of the effort to make her and Peter's new arrangement work. Now that she realizes that she needs to refocus some of her energy on her Heartland / Hudson responsibilities, I wonder if Peter will be willing to pick up the slack. Interestingly, it is very similar for Jessica. Everything seems to be what Tim wants, and she's doing all the bending. Both these storylines should be interesting. That's really well put. I agree, and I think one of the things that I'm most looking forward to during the season is seeing who Katie is at this moment in time. There was some back and forth with her and the situation with Lou and Peter last season that I was not completely happy with. I mean, I did like episode 9 with her, where she was honest about her feelings, and the way Lou and Peter's divorce and kind of the fighting and everything like that affected her. I really liked that. So it was a bit of a bummer when she kind of went back and they like, forget about that. I just want you two together. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that, but I think maybe like it is messy like this, but I also like that they're showing Katie going through these motions, because that's been basically her whole childhood, and it should leave a mark. I mean, usually does. So I'm hoping that they really explore that and kind of show who Katie is, which we know she is kind of struggling this year. So hopefully that'll deliver good storylines with her. And I think it was well put when you said that everything seems to be what Tim wants and she's doing all the bending. Like, that's perfectly put. I'm looking forward to Rick's adoption story and wondering what hurdles he will face, how Lou will support him, and look forward to seeing their friendship grow stronger. I mean, we knew that it was happening, but it was kind of nice to see Lou not know. She was confused at first, and I hope that this will kind of take their relationship to a new level. I mean, when they first started, it wasn't like the perfect thing, but eventually the respect was gained and then friendship reached. And now I feel like it's even more personal with every passing year. So it's nice to see Lou be there for Rick for something this special. And yeah, I hope that we get to see a lot of Rick and hopefully Carl, maybe the baby. I mean, it's a long process, but who knows? So yeah, I'm looking forward to this storyline as well, because I think it's something we've never seen before. I mean, we've seen the adoption of Georgie, of course, but I think it was more like Georgie came into Lou and Peter's life, and then they just kind of figured, hey, we could maybe adopt this kid. Whereas with Carl and Rick, it's more like, okay, we want a kid, so we're kind of making more effort to have a kid in our lives. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they will treat that storyline. And I think it's in an environment like Heartland that's very like wholesome and safe in that way, that usually the heartbreaks don't last long. So I hope that means that this is a positive storyline for a character like Rick and Carl. And yeah, I just hope they do it right, you know. I've been disappointed before when it comes to kids' storylines, but I hope this time they'll actually get it right. Yeah. And the last thing that they said was, I also hope that Jack and Lisa find a solution to their self-inflicted separation problems early in the season. I think it's an important thing for Jack to say that sometimes things that take you away from someone you love aren't always the things you kind of despise or things that you want, but that could break your relationship. I think it's important to see that sometimes things you really are passionate about could take you away, but you can come back to that relationship and not regret going out. Yeah, so I'm interested to see Lisa's side of this because we usually see Jack's side. So I would love to hear more of Lisa's side to this. Then Mack Loves Heartland said, I loved the episode. So much happened. I love that it started off with a bang. I found it interesting that Copper was on an episode for the first time in years. It's like he came out of nowhere, literally. I take that Lindy is a quick learner and she learns by observing based on the Miracle Girl scene. That scene was really well done. It kept me on the edge of my seat, even though I knew Amy nor Lindy would get hurt. It made me so sad seeing Lindy sitting by herself at school. The twins are incredible little actresses and did a great job. Yeah, I agree about the acting bit. It is interesting because, well, I don't really know about the personal lives of the twins, and nor should I, but I always find it interesting the concept of child actors, because when you have an adult actor, they usually have some experience with life, or maybe someone else in their closest circle have experience about something like that, or they can just read about it or watch videos or whatever and kind of get the concept of what their character is possibly going through. But with kids, it's much more like surface level. And I think, stories are the things that teach them about emotions and, empathy and everything like that. So it was interesting to think how the twins must have prepared for those kind of scenes, because yeah, you can tell them like, oh, look sad, but I think at this age they are starting to understand more why they look sad, if that makes sense. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop as actors and how their life experience expands and everything like that, how they basically grow with Lindy, and how that'll affect their like personal experience of life. Then they continued, I thought it was interesting how Amy wanted the video taken down because she didn't want Lindy's face to be all over the internet, because she dealt with that childhood fame when she was older than Lindy, but she was still quite young. It seemed like she wanted to protect Lindy from the game, especially since she's just 6 years old. Yeah, it was very kind of like subtle, the way Amy's past with media and publicity kind of shown through her actions. But I really appreciated it because it's not something they deal with a lot. I mean, obviously she's kind of a local celebrity, but I don't think it's often very like highlighted. But I thought it was interesting that now that it's kind of the next generation of fame and publicity, she had strict rules and limitations about what she wants to do with that, or others to do with that. So yeah, it's one of the best things about having a show run this long, because you can kind of, if you've been watching every episode, or you have an understanding of the character, you can kind of pick apart those little things that they've gained over the years, that it's not just something the writers kind of made up. I mean, it is, but like it shows the character's history. Then they continued. I liked how Jessica's horse Flash was acting up. I felt that maybe that was coming from being gentled so fast. The join up scene was so fun to see. Yeah, I was hoping that they would do something with that horse, because it was a sweet gift from Tim and Amy, but I also felt like it was kind of like, okay, then what next? And before we knew it, the season had ended. So I really, like, even last season, I really wanted to see a join up scene to establish that relationship. I think even though we're not miracle girls, we still know that that is something that you kind of have to establish in the early stages of relationship with a horse. So I was hoping it would have happened last season, but I'm just glad it happened now. Like, I'm just glad that we got to see it. And it's always this magical moment between, or I would imagine, between the cast member and their kind of main horse, to have that moment, because we see it many times with Amy, and it's always beautiful. But at this point, Amber has been doing the join up so much, it's kind of like routine, and it doesn't, like, it's nice, but it doesn't really do much to me anyways. But then when we see characters like Tim or Jessica joining up with their horses, there's element of not knowing what's going to happen next. I mean, obviously there's always going to be a happy ending, but the way that they kind of learn along with their characters how to do that, and how to be present in that kind of scene. So it was fun to see with Jessica and Flash. Then they continued. As sweet as the scene with the miracle girl saddle was, I couldn't help but think how much I don't understand why Amy still has the saddle. Yes, it's pretty and it was a nice gift, but Ahmed was not a good person. She kind of touched on the fact that he wasn't a fairy tale prince, but it just felt off because of what happened between her and Ahmed. Like, that was 8 years ago. Why does she still have it? Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I mean, the saddle is just beautiful, and I hate that they kind of spoiled it with the Prince storyline, because it's like it has a lot of meaning, the saddle itself, and it probably gives a lot of confidence boost to Amy when she's writing. But just the association with Ahmed, it's just kind of like, I don't know, that bitter taste. So in a way, I was glad that they acknowledged that it was a gift from the prince, and it wasn't like a fairy tale prince. But at the same time, I still feel the storyline hasn't been properly dealt with. It gives me this uneasy feeling. So I can't really like see past what happened with Ahmed. But I do like that Amy kind of made it her own now with adding the letter S after the word girl. So it was like miracle girl. So it did save that a little bit, but yeah, I know what you're saying when you say that about the saddle. I like the arguments between Lou and Katie. They felt natural and something that a girl her age would be mad about. I'm interested to see how the storyline plays out through the rest of the season. When Tim, I think, told Amy to take the blinders off, it almost made me cry, thinking about how Finn told her the same thing. I really enjoyed the conversation between Jack and Amy. I love it when Jack shares his wisdom. Overall, this was a great episode to start of the season. It really set the tone for what the season will be. I can't wait for episode 2. Also, I want to add to this very long comment that I noticed that when Lou was ranting to Amy about Rick saying he won't always be around, Amy mentioned Rick's name. That probably means that she's either met him or just heard Lou talk about him a lot. I thought that was a nice realistic detail to put in the dialogue. And then Crocheting Grandma said, "Well said, love this episode." Yeah, the Rick thing, I was trying to remember. I think there was at least one sort of scene with them together in season 14, episode 2, when they had the barbecue thing in the Hudson Park. I think both Amy and Rick were there. They didn't talk, but I would assume that they would, or Lou would introduce them or something like that. But yeah, I think it was almost like, whoa, like Amy knows about him, even though of course she does, because Lou must talk about him a lot. But it's just like she had a clear vision of who Rick is, and almost makes it feel like Rick is part of the family. Then a review from Smoking Holsters. Maybe I shouldn't have watched this episode 3 times in 24 hours. I enjoyed the first couple of times, but the third really wondered at it. Some parts were great and made me smile, and some parts just really annoyed me. That's the way Heartland strikes me these days. I love watching it. I love the scenery. I love the behind the scenes stuff. I love writing Heartland fics. But can we bring any reality or character growth into the show after 16 years? The opening sequence was great because I love seeing how Amy is getting Lindy started in Liberty early on, because this is purely Amy. Marion didn't do Liberty as far as we know, so this is 100% Amy thing that she's passing on to her daughter. The Westfields are pretty much unredeemable. Flame from episode 1 of season 11, and Moondance, haven't we seen this before? And while I expected no more from Paula, when Peyton shows up, there's no apology, just the, hey, we're assholes, especially my mom, but could you help? The Miracle Girl saddle, the headline, I'm shocked they still own the saddle, because in the real world, that saddle is worth more than the Norton tie sold to dig a well. So the idea that it's still sitting there is as weird as it would be if she walked out one day wearing that diamond horseshoe necklace Ahmed gave her. And did we need a reminder that Amy's the miracle girl? The flashback was great though. That's one of my favorite Heartland episodes. Miss Clarissa may just be the most annoying person in the world, really over the top. I mean, I understand that as a kindergarten teacher, you really want an energetic person, but clearly there's an issue with Lindy and the other kids, which she acknowledges and then pushes the wrong way. I love that Rick and Carl are going after an adoption, and that the show is taking Rick and Carl's relationship seriously, though we haven't met him. I'm back and forth as to whether Peter Dillon is Carl. I guess we'll see. Why are Tim and Lisa still in the loft? I guess you meant Jessica. And if they want to stay, why not just modernize the system? It is 8 years old, and why is it Jack's job? Yeah, that was something I was wondering. Like, I get that Tim kind of messed up with the first one, but it's kind of like, why not show growth and get another one? Is it because it's Jack's property? Or I don't know. I felt like I was missing something. It's not like they have no money. Jessica was a partner in a Wall Street investment firm and just sold an architectural digest condo in Manhattan. I know money is a strange Heartland subject, but just ignoring everything from previous seasons is always bothersome to me. Flash. I'll never understand why joining up isn't a standard on the ranch before a problem sets in. This is Heartland, right? Jack and Lisa and Jack acting no better than a grumpy child because his wife is away. Will that ever change? Who could have figured that after acting like a couple in their 30s last year and doubling the herd and buying $1 million racehorse would have made the work harder and separate them? Answer, we all could. I found the Jack and Amy talk on the couch pretty cringeworthy. Imagine calling a grown, widowed, single mom a busy girl. Seriously? Lou hasn't changed since day one. I know people love her, and for the most part, I like her character and what she represents in the show, but really, she doesn't read anyone well, which I guess makes sense if everything gets processed as something about her. Very much a Thai thing, by the way. I mean, we all do that to some extent, but she seems almost incapable of looking at an issue from a different perspective. And where's Peter? Vancouver, of course, and who thought this wouldn't be an issue? I really don't understand the whole center thing. She gives them a bunch of money to keep it open and then volunteers her time. Clint actually asked her to do 3 clinics in a day and she's not getting paid. It never occurred to me that she wouldn't be offered some kind of position if she's working with the kids. Clint is in charge? What the hell does Clint know about running a ranch? So I hope that that might be something Amy took on, but I guess Amy living in her childhood bedroom in one bathroom house is $724 could afford in terms of sets. Thankfully, I get to write and read these stories as fics. Then H.L. Horsett said, I really liked the episode. Great start to the season. I noticed some different camera angles, like the beginning drone shot of the Liberty Place. Didn't realize that's where it was located. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's so close. Like that was a cool way to show kind of that we're back to Heartland, and not only back, but we're back to this location. And it was actually much closer than I expected. The fire pit scene, I believe we've only seen once and not from that angle. And then the angle in Lindy's room with Katie and Lou. Also, the lighting in the kitchen was a lot different as well. And they finally updated the title sequence with the new Jack and Tim clips. Now we just need a new Michelle one and Jessica Steen added to it. Why not just add them into the title sequence as well? Because it's like the perfect opportunity. Tim is married to Jessica, Jack is married to Lisa, and Lisa's been there since season 1 for crying out loud. So overall, I wouldn't have mind the old clips of Jack and Tim if this is the update they had in mind, because it's like, why change when you don't really change much? I also appreciated all the callbacks, the saddle, Tim, and the loft renovations, the season 3 clip, and Copper magically shows up. The twins were very good, and I love that they BFF it their own storyline, and it was a good one. Lindy copying Amy with her hands up, as cute and love the parallels and the new Miracle Girls. The Amy and Lindy scenes were cute as well, and I love seeing Lindy as kindergarten with friends. Love Jessica's scenes with Flash. Still mad at the name and that she had actual scenes with Amy, which were missing last season. Yeah, I agree with that. Jessica's face after the join up was wonderful. I agree. I feel like, I don't know Michelle Nolden, but I feel like that was her in that scene, and it was very sweet. Then they continued. The fight between Jack and Jessica had me shook, but in a good way, and the look she gave him at the end was priceless. Also shook they mentioned Ahmed after 8 seasons. I thought that Tim and Jessica would bring on them getting their own place, but in typical Heartland fashion, they look to be staying on the property. Lou is seen drinking wine, but I wonder what Michelle was actually drinking since she was pregnant at the time. I wonder if it was grape juice, because I feel like I've heard them maybe mentioning that in the past, but not sure. I have a feeling that the way they dealt with Peter is how we are going to see him dealt with the whole season, since no sign of Gabe, which really isn't the best, because we need to see their relationship on screen, especially for their situation. Tim's line about taking the blinders off made me sad because Finn. It also hit me at the end when it said dedicated to Robert. Yeah, for some reason I had forgotten that that might happen, and then when it did, it was like, oh geez, like I was just like smiling looking at Amy and Lindy, and then it came on and it was like, oh gosh, my heart broken again. Yeah, but I'm glad they did it. Typical Jack and Tim made me laugh when Jack was blaming Tim for cheaping out the plumbing. Also tricky promo people, but I also knew was going to happen, but they misled everyone with thinking that living room fireplace scene with Jack and Amy was going to be about Finn, but it wasn't. All in all, I loved all the storylines and how they were all similar problems but different and all fit the episode title well. Can't wait for the next week. And then Miriam said, "Wow, you described this episode so well. Thanks." And then Nina added, "Yes, I also love the callbacks. Season 3, The Prince, all of it." Then JM7347 said, "I thoroughly enjoyed episode 1. I wasn't disappointed." And S. Davidson said, "Beautiful. Love Amy and Lindy moments." Then Dom Burrell said, "I really loved it. Lots of new sides to the characters coming out, which is refreshing as it adds a new dimension to the dynamics of the family. I am especially impressed with Lindy's confidence and the Spencer twins' acting and how she feeds off Amy. Lou and Katie's relationship has changed dynamics, and I'm really keen to see where that goes. I like Grumpy Jack, but can't wait for Chisa to be reunited and have some adventures. Jessica showed her true New York feistiness, which could ruffle some feathers if she carries on. Tim is Tim, just more mellow. And Rick, so cute with a great storyline. No doubt there will be lots of humor involved. A great opening episode and can wait for the next Sunday." Then Heartland Lisa PFC said, "It definitely felt like new beginnings with new arcs for all characters, but using the past to help shape them. For example, the miracle girl for Amy, but moving it forward to Amy and Lindy. It sets up lots of potential and generated interest, making you want to watch the next episode. It's definitely a promising start. I'm looking forward to seeing Rick's baby storyline develop. Think it will let us see another side to Rick and let us get to know him more. Also, hearing Jack missing Lisa does make you want Gisa reunited as soon as possible. Love trying to spot Michelle's bump to knowing it was felt while she was still pregnant. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they did a little bit better job than they did in season 7, but I feel like with this episode, they used a lot more darker clothing and the lighting helped a little bit. And yeah, I feel like maybe if you didn't know, you didn't necessarily spot that. But yeah. Then No Context Heartland said, "In true Rachel fashion, I was most invested in Lou, Jessica, Rick, and Katie this episode. I think Lou and Katie's disagreements could have been dragged out longer and were solved very easily, but I'm hoping we get more early teenage angst from Katie this season as she's nearing high school. Loved Rick and Lou this episode. Lou's abandonment issues showing as she spiraled a bit over the idea of Rick wanting to leave and how he dragged out the paternity leave mention. I love this for him. Also really enjoyed Nolden's performance. Amy was right, like Rick can be dramatic, but that's one of the reasons why we love him so much. Then Mack loves Heartland added to No Context Heartland's comment. "I agree, Michelle Nolan's acting was on point this episode. And yes, Lou was definitely having some abandonment issues. It's her thing." And then Stephanie Rowe said, "It was a good season opener. Love that we got storyline with Lindy and Amy, and those scenes were adorable. The twins did such a great job acting. The fight between Katie and Lou was interesting. Part of me felt like they rushed to a conclusion a little too quickly. I sort of wish they could have talked about her situation with Peter a bit more and give us an indication how they're actually make this relationship work. I hope we can actually see them grow as a couple." Yeah, this is just the thing. Like, I think it's a bit of a cop out because we only get to see Lou's point of view in a way and Lou's narrative of the situation, which to me isn't very interesting because I enjoy seeing the two sides of the relationship and how they're gonna overcome possible struggles and how they feel about things, because now it's kind of like, yeah, we just kind of had a fight with Peter and now it's okay. Like it can just happen within 5 seconds, all that kind of build up and then the conclusion. So yeah, it's a bit one note. Jessica doing the join up with Flash was a classic Heartland scene. I honestly never get tired of those. Also, I agree with the other comment regarding his name. They could have done better. Yeah, I think Flash is such a basic name. I mean, if your horse is called Flash, like, good on you, but it's not my favorite. Jack saying Amy taking the blinders off made me think of Famey. I have so many mixed emotions because of Robert. Speaking of Robert, I'm very much glad they've decided to dedicate the season to him. Even though he only was on Heartland a short time, he truly left a mark on the show and will always hold a special place for all of us. Seeing a memory of Robert at the end of the episode definitely made me emotional. I think it's very telling of Robert's talent and presence that, so far we've only seen him for one episode. I know there's more to come and I know that you all know, but it's just like leaving that kind of impression in just one episode and sort of bringing our minds to life in a whole new way. It's just like, what a beautiful, legacy to leave us with. And I think it was well put what Stephanie said about that. Yeah. And last but certainly not least, Nina's comment. Instant tears when Lindy's big scene came. It was cheesy, but beautifully done, and I love the twins. They had so many lines in this first episode, and it's incredible to see. They're both very talented little ones. I appreciate the fact that Lindy also seems to be uncomfortable with attention like her mother. Miss Clarissa all over her the day after the video was released made me so uncomfortable, mostly because you could see how uncomfortable Lindy also was. Yeah, I feel like this is sometimes the case when kids get or do something and it kind of shines a highlight on them, that sometimes it's the grown-ups that get more excited about the possibilities of fame and opportunities, and the kid is just like, I don't know, I was just being myself. And yeah, I think it was a good point to point out. Great details and excellent acting on the part of the girls. Also, seeing how they're setting up Finn's return is heartbreaking. Robert's passing is really going to hit hard in a few episodes, I think. On the other hand, good to see good old Lou recognizing the consequences of her actions. All the love to our favorite boss lady. But man, she really can be short-sighted sometimes. Looking forward to seeing what the season holds for everyone and excited for the next episode. Yeah, couldn't have said that any better. Thanks for all the comments, and seriously, my voice is going out because this is a lot of reading, but I think it proves that this was a liked premiere and people are excited to see more. And I don't know, it just makes my heart warm as well, because I just love sharing this journey with you guys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the 14 episodes which we get this season. So yeah, speaking of 14 episodes, let's check on the next one before we actually tune out. So, episode 2 of season 16, called Changes, airs October 9th. So, if you're listening to this on Saturday, that's tomorrow. And the description for the episode says Amy's decision to work with Peyton Weststeel's horse upsets Logan. Jack helps Katie find her own path. Lou has to come through for Rick. So, obviously, we can understand why it upsets Logan, because in the first episode, we even heard them say, Peyton is Paula's daughter, and Logan doesn't have a good experience with Paula. Not that anyone really has, but and I think Logan really looks up to Amy, and seeing her kind of help the kind of people that he might seem as not good people, probably makes him question if he really looks up to Amy after all. And I think this should be an interesting thing to see. I mean, I know that Amy's motivations for helping Peyton are solely horse based, because, you know, we know that that's just how Amy is. But how is she gonna explain that to Logan, and does that kind of make her rethink about these things, like how she handles them and everything like that? So that should be interesting to see. Jack helps Katie find her own path. I'm curious about this. I mean, we've seen a little glimpses of this in the teaser and just a couple of on-set pictures. But yeah, like I said earlier, I'm really interested to see who Katie is at this moment in time, and you know, what she's struggling with. Obviously, we saw something, but I think they're gonna expand that a little bit, which I'm excited about. But also something I'm excited about is this: Lou has to come through for Rick. I mean, I would imagine it has something to do with the fatherhood storyline, and maybe Rick is nervous and Lou's like, I've been through this, you know, I can help you with this. It's gonna be lovely to see that Lou is gonna be there for Rick in a whole new way, especially because, you know, as we saw in episode 1, Lou might sometimes take people for granted, and in this case, Rick. So for her to help him, I think it'll kind of balance things out, and it'll make their relationship grow even more. Yeah, and I'm glad Rick has Lou there for him, because he's not gonna ask Gladys for help, that's for sure. But yeah, thanks for joining, thanks for listening, thanks for commenting and just taking part and watching and everything. If you're watching this episode and you want to take part, or you know, you're not familiar with my Instagram account, it's H2HL podcast. I always post like a picture of the aired episode and ask you to comment under it. So that is the way you can take part of this. Hopefully I will see some new names attached to the old regulars who I also love equally. I'll see you next week, and I hope you enjoy this Sunday's episode. Until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. See ya.